Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Four Sides of Cross podcast. Today we're talking with Dale Tormey, who plays Bob in our new film, Take Me. So, Dale, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your background?
I am originally a vocalist musician for years and years and years. I've always had a passion for voiceover stuff, and while I do a lot more with like creature voices and audio production stuff, but I've been using all that stuff to get towards doing more with voiceover. I did do a little bit of on stage acting when I was with the bands, being big ominous evil guy. It lent a lot to that performance, and then spending time in radio helped with kind of projecting and knowing like a few things here and there, but it was really radio and working in music that have kind of as my origins for getting interested in doing anything acting or voiceover related.
Oh, nice. That was a metal band, right? Death metal?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember you were telling me you got to travel a lot with that.
Oh yeah. So we traveled all over the world. We went to my first tour with them was actually in Japan, and then we went to South Africa and to Russia and to which is an interesting subject right now. And then we went to the UK. We played in Ireland and around England, as well as all over the US, which was a lot of fun and got me a lot of experience keeping a consistent demeanor and voice and stuff like that, as well as really practicing up holding and carrying a character for extended periods of time, and got me really passionate about creating characters.
Nice. So, what kind of roles do you think are best suited for you?
I think anyone that allows for some kind of, I hate to say overacting, but I really like the kind of the characters who have a lot of almost over the top personalities. That being said, I also really like doing like creature voices and stuff like that because of the death metal thing. Finding and maintaining that stuff has been a lot of fun, but of course, gotta love my own voice enough to be able to do it as well. So that's always fun. But there's just something that's absolutely entertaining about creating a new voice for a new character that kind of carries over. Doing yourself, but a different demeanor for this character for Bob, getting to do myself, but more timid because I'm not a timid person. So to have to play this like kind of like, oh, I don't want to. It's good. It was fun to get to kind of mess around with.
Yeah, to be a little love struck and unfortunately with the wrong person.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like I was there at one point in college, but not in the same way. Definitely not the same way.
Yeah. Hopefully with a little bit of a better person.
Yeah, I think all of them were better people for sure.
Okay, so when you think of like future projects and that, what kind of role would you really like to play? Would you like to picture yourself and you'd really like to get your hands into?
I really like playing the evil guy who has some like Skeletor is a good example. I love that till we meet again, like that kind of like boisterous over the top voice. I did a voice for one of my friends for a friend's book, and it has this older character, Dr. Mortimer Crove, and he has this whole thing and he talks and he sounds very wise and older the whole time, but in the end he's actually quite evil and kind of has a fucked up sense of humor. So like I really like, I think that my ideal would be to get to play some over the top evil person, dumb monster. I like those ones too, where like the oh, I didn't mean to do that, George. Like those like, any of those are a lot of fun. I just have a lot of fun with these over the top kind of ominous characters. So ideally I'd get to play something like that.
Nice. Okay. I'll keep you on my speed dial.
Hey, I'm here.
Okay, all right, great. Now I know with voice acting, you don't get to always be with people around you to like play off of.
Right.
So how do you like approach that? How do you like practice what you're going to do when you don't have the other actors to be around you to work off of?
Well, for like this one, what I'd kind of been doing beforehand when I read through it is I just read through each person and I gave each person a voice and kind of tried to project them as I thought they might be read, as well as trying to read the direction that's written there, as well, to kind of mash that together to kind of understand where I'm coming from. But then also having just a couple interactions with the other individual that or group of people, just so I know how they're going to sound in it. And especially doing like a practice run, just getting to kind of, shoot it back and forth is good. Because at that point, I kind of internalize a little bit of what they're trying, of what they're going to give to the scene. So that way I try and match that. So it's not, so far from it. The other key to that one is trying to get it recorded close-ish to as close you can to that interaction. So that way you have it as fresh in your memory, because every time you think about it again, your brain's going to reinterpret it. So it's like the fewer times you have that like game of telephone happening in your own head, the better.
Yeah, I always thought the table read is one of the most important parts. So you gotta kind of get a feel.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess this would even go back to your singing days. For loud vocal exercises, what do you feel works best for you?
So for me, I do a lot of the time for voice acting. I won't do too much, but there's a couple ones that I learned from my classes that I would do that are just simple scales work in. Just basically, it's more about enunciation and working to get your like face and all those muscles kind of warmed up and ready to go. But then the practicing breathing exercises is huge. So I used to meditate all the time, kind of deal with some ADHD issues that I had growing up. It was like my way of kind of centering myself. And so I would use those same breath exercises to kind of warm up my diaphragm, but then just practice, finding something you love to sing and kind of just getting into it, and then just basically increasing the amount of time you do it over a long period. So that way you build that strength without damaging your voice and everything else. So for me, I'd spend I used to practice once a week for hours on end, and I would like take breaks. But other things, if you're worried about, a voice you're doing and it's going to have like a lot of work on your throat, is having a lot of water, having some honey around, if it's like to quickly get on there to kind of soothe things down, as well as there's a type of tea called throat coat. And that is like my favorite after I'd finish a show. If I was a little bit under the weather or something, I'd use that. Yeah, as far like it's just a whole lot of breathing exercises, which you can find, there's a bunch online, but just doing them to kind of work on building out your diaphragm and strengthening that. And then from there, just finding something that's in your mid-range. Don't really go for things that are high or low, but find like that kind of middle, that comfortable place in your what's known as your head voice, and then work on that, like that area. Don't go for the highest and don't go for the most impressive. Just find something that's very middle ground, and then work from there and work out. And if you do that, you can reach way higher than you would if you just jumped right to the end, as well as it'll help really build the diaphragm, because gutting and hitting those high notes and hitting those low notes is all about more air. And the only way to get more air is to practice breathing.
Breathing? I don't believe in that.
Well, like when a lot of people go to sleep, you'll notice that your breathing goes from up here. There's a lot of people when they're like worried, they're versus like where you're actually breathing. When you're breathing deep, you're breathing down here. And so like learning to let your breath sink down there without like bringing out your chest, because this is not going to increase your diaphragm any. This is going to make it harder for your diaphragm to contract upon itself and really press and give you that push of air to really make you consistent. Other things that help, a compressor. I always feel bad when I get into Discord with my friends and I see them all turning their volumes down. I'm like, oops, my compressor might be too high. But yeah, like breathing exercises. Also, if you're really passionate about getting into singing, you don't have to do it for a long time and you don't have to break the bank doing it, but getting a vocal coach and meeting with somebody who knows what they're doing, who can listen to what you're doing and give you suggestions, tips, and help you build it, because you can only do so much looking from the inside out at yourself, kind of thing.
So when you first get a script and you're reading over your character, is there any certain steps you take to get to know the character more so you can relate with it, that will add to your performance?
Like I was saying before, I'm ADHD. So when I read a character script, normally even if I haven't read the rest of the story yet and I don't really know where it's going, I already am trying to peg an image and like an entire person around the voice that so it's like read it like, so I try and like create an entire demeanor, even if it's not like a complete rounded character. So you can't like know these things about him. I try and like make up details in my head to make them more understandable. Like Bob thinking about like, oh, well, he's kind of timid, he's younger than her, maybe he's like some younger and more naive person and this older woman's come along and pulled him, like, so I try and create this like web to the character so that way if something's to come up or like I'm supposed to show an emotion to it, I can try and accurately create it without like just going to what I personally would do in that situation to kind of keep it from being my actual person, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does actually. Perfect sense. Any role models or anybody's career you'd like to model your career after?
I mean, the latter half of Ryan Reynolds' career would be great. Just take out the part where he did, or I guess minus the Green Lantern. We'll just take that part out and the rest of it. I like the fact that he doesn't necessarily like, while looking at like people like Jared Leto in Memento and like what he did there, like that was a great movie. I love that movie. Or not Memento, not no.
I was about to say I didn't remember him in that one.
No, I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Oh, the one with the drugs, right?
Yes, I can't think of the name of it, but when he was in that one and it just being like super like gritty and it just had a whole lot of feel. It's like that one, and then The Machinist came out around the same time, and him and Jared Leto in that, and then Christian Bale in The Machinist really like initially were like, oh wow, that's amazing. But then like watching people like Ryan Reynolds who don't do that, like they don't make themselves have to be entirely the person. Like they're not. There's a term for the type of acting that it is. But anyway, basically when you're good. It's basically when you act, you make your entire life the character. And like, I can understand how that could help some people, but that's not how my brain works. So knowing that like a person like Ryan Reynolds is out there just, being himself in various movies, there's something about that that's amazing. And I love that. And I want to take that energy though and apply it to being able to be other people in other movies. So like being an evil person or something like that, like finding the middle ground between him and Jim Carrey. Like I think that's like where I'd like to land. That'd be probably the like as far as like voice actors, DiMaggio, the voice actor for Bender and for Schnitzel, a bazillion other things. It's Mark DiMaggio, I think. I could be getting his name wrong, but he's an amazing voice actor, and in each one, he is completely distinct and unique, but yet still able to convey so much with those characters. Like Bender, just the voice acting he does on that is just absolutely amazing. Honestly, I'm terrible about voice actors' names, and I should really get better about it because I want to be one. But I can think about their characters forever, and I can tell you which like characters really blew me away. Like because the voice actor who did Fry and the Professor and Zoidberg and like all these other, and he's an amazing voice actor, but I can never remember his name. And he was in The Simpsons, but like there's just so many that I think do so many cool things. As far as voice actors go, there's just so many quality ones out there, and it's really hard. I feel bad because I don't feel like their names get thrown in front of me hard enough.
yeah, exactly.
Which I'm not helping right now by not remembering their names.
Well, there's only one actor's name you need to remember. That's yours.
Just the names of the characters I'm playing.
It's funny when you were saying about Ryan Reynolds. I don't know if you ever listened to or watch his podcast, The Critical Drinker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like where he says, and Ryan Reynolds is once again playing Ryan Reynolds in this new movie.
Ryan Reynolds is Pikachu.
Yeah.
John DiMaggio. That was the name I was looking for. John DiMaggio. He's the
okay.
voice actor for Bender, which was one of my first like character voices that just talked to me. So, and just seeing, he did a documentary on Netflix a little while ago that was super good. But when they were talking about him not coming back for the last season of Futurama, I was like, no,
no, that show's dead to me now.
It's like you can't not hire back the voice of Bender. Bender's like, his voice is so iconic. Like his character is just like, I mean, the line "Shut up, baby, I know it." Just just the timing. It's just yeah. Like I just, I don't think anybody. It would be obvious that somebody else was just doing his voice.
Yeah, or just trying to imitate it, and imitation's not as good as the original.
Yeah. So John DiMaggio is probably like the biggest as far as the voice actors world of people who really inspired me. Is like seeing him just have so much character in one voice that you would swear would be his normal voice, but isn't. Just it's just that like level of inflection and being able to stay in that voice style for the whole thing and it not be his own voice. That is just, I love that. It's just, that's my favorite part about about voice acting is people being completely other people, and then you see them and you're like, that is not who I was expecting.
Yeah, it's like before we started recording, we were talking about Spike, and getting to see him in an interview for the first time where he didn't sound like Spike at all. Like, who are you?
It's like when people what is it, the newest Spider-Man, he is British. Yes. And so people are thrown off by his English accent when he is, you know, because he plays Peter Parker and he can throw on a like amazing American accent.
yeah, exactly. They confuse you. They confuse.
Yeah, I mean it's a cool skill, and that's like, I don't know. I hope to one day be able to hang my hat on being able to do that with at least one character at some point. That's the goal.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. What do you think would be your favorite project that you've ever worked on to date, and why is it mine?
I mean, there's something like I know that like I have an interestingly out there sense of humor about a lot of things, and so when it comes to doing different performances and stuff like that in these like the last there's like an 8-minute movie that I was part of that was for just like a film festival that we shot in like 2007 or 8, and it's old, but it's really really bad. But there's just like something about about cringy like material and like the high, like I love that kind of feeling, like where it's like there's some kind of offness there, that independent feel, I guess you could say. So I really like that, and I've been very excited about this. I know that there's a lot of people out there who may not be super into the animation style, but I know that I will personally absolutely love it, and so I'm very excited about this one.
Nice.
I do
add more to my ego, please.
But like the things that I really enjoy are these like kind of these independent, like there's no real other way to get it out there, but like in the small time and just kind of watch it spread stuff. Like the first voiceover thing that I put out there was a reading of one of my friend's stories, and it was a lot of fun to do. And I loved getting to help out somebody who I thought was very nice and, you know, seemed like a wholesome character. So it was good to get to do that, but it was sad because I don't have that animation skill like you have. So I just kind of put images over top of it as it was just kind of going along as I read the story. But just kind of doing all that smaller stuff and getting involved in like these new original ideas that, you know, aren't necessarily from any big budget place, because it's more fun. There's a lot more freedom. People are nicer. You know, that's my experience so far anyway.
Yeah, when it's independent, we all kind of work together. When you get to Hollywood level, then it's like, I'm too esteemed.
But it's like I experienced the same thing in like the metal scene with like when we got up to that point where we were touring and stuff like that. We were in this gray area where we would be I mean, we played shows with major names like Flesh God Apocalypse and Hatebreed and Carnifex and like these big names in the metal scene, like playing those shows, but then at the same time playing like these tiny little podunk shows. And so we got to see like people were really nice to us that were in those bigger bands, but when an unknown band that like hadn't played any shows with these people would show up, they'd all kind of pass them off. And I'm like, well, but they're good. Like, and so I don't know. I've always loved the independent and kind of underground scene of things. Getting back to doing that in a new venue is a whole lot of fun.
Nice. Well, what was the name of your band?
The name of the band was Skinned. They still kind of exist, but they put out one album after I was no longer in the band. Otherwise, I think they're mostly defunct. They haven't done anything in a couple of years anyway, and they hadn't put out any information. Yeah, name of the band was Skinned, and I was on one of the albums we put out. I was in the band for a total of 2 years of the like 25 that the band existed. So it's been around for a while, but it was a lot of fun for the time that I got to be in it.
Yeah, and obviously that was the best album they made, was with you in it.
Oh, totally. I mean, come on.
Absolutely.
I will admit there is a song on that album called Lung Butter, and I love the wording of it and the lyrics of it, but it makes absolutely no sense to anybody else. And I realized this after we put it out. It's a good thing it's death metal, so you can't understand what I'm saying.
It's a
whole lot of Cookie Monster noises. Yep.
Yeah, there we go. That's how you practice being a monster later.
Exactly.
So what do you think is the most challenging project you ever worked on? Something that has like really took a lot out of you on?
I'd have to say really narrating for that story, because I did a bunch of like smaller narrations afterwards, but really I started myself off on like the hardest foot, because it was like most stuff in the horror realm is, you know, one voice or two voices, you know, the narrator and maybe their friend or something along those lines, maybe a smattering, but most of the time, especially for the independent stuff, it's like first person point of view, one voice. And so I thought, oh, this will be not a big deal. Well, I had no experience mixing or mastering or doing anything. So I jumped into this project very excited, recorded my first, like, I had recorded I think a 10-minute thing that I had written before that, but I never put it out. And so I tried to record this for my friend, and it's like a 40-minute reading after it's edited all the way down. And I had no experience in the booth, like aside from with the band where I'd have cues from the music, and it was difficult. It took me probably, oh God, like 20 hours all said and done, editing, cutting, re-editing, re-recording, just going around trying to get, and for 40 minutes.
Wow.
So like, that's not the hardest because of like technical skill or anything else like that, but just because of sheer ignorance. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. Now I'd say like, it wasn't like, if I was to have to redo it now, it'd be a lot easier. I've done a number of 20-minute things here and there, and doing this with you is probably the next most difficult one, because of having to maintain what the hero was saying and how she was performing against Bob. And so that way I would keep all that straight in my head. So that way when I was in the booth recording it on my own, I was trying to cadence it so that way you could take that back and then edit it into a form that was usable. I think I ultimately ended up on just trying to leave gaps in between each section, so that way you could just like clip the chunks out. But yes, like initially I tried to like have her speaking them in my head while I was doing it. And that, while that was good for practicing it, when it came to actual production of it, her voice in my head leading me in was good. But then to try and like move on to the next line with that while by yourself in a small room was a new experience. I hadn't had to do anything like that before, especially for like it's entirely dialogue, but it's just straight back and forth. And I'd done dialogue with myself, but never like with a person who's not actually there. So learning that that's more complicated than it seems, but then inevitably realizing that it's a whole lot less complicated when you can just leave the gaps for the person to edit in. And it's like, oh, I overcomplicated this a lot, but it was a good learning curve. But it was like probably, I'd say that was probably the second most difficult of all the stuff that I've recorded so far.
Well, you definitely nailed it. I can't wait for you to actually see the film.
I appreciate
it's definitely
that.
natural. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I look forward to it. I'm excited. I've only got to see my side of it, so it's like,
how's it come
or
together?
hear my side of it.
Yeah. What would you think is your favorite inspirational quote? Things that when you feel down that kind of charges you, that you would like to share because it's so inspirational.
I'm sorry, I've got to pull it up because it's a "Life gives you lemons" quote. The voice actor for that, I think it's actually might be John DiMaggio again. But it's from the Portals game. When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make life take the lemons back. Get mad. I don't want your damn lemons. What am I supposed to do with these demand to see life's manager?
That's a good one.
Like, that's probably like that, just because I've heard so long, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. It's like, well, no. Get mad. Ask why I gave you the lemons. It's one of those ones where it makes no sense, but it makes me feel confident when I think it.
That's all that matters.
Right. So that's probably like the most common quote that runs through my head on a regular basis.
Nice.
I don't know if you'll want to use this one, but quote that I just put a really bad quote. I was trying to make my wife laugh. I said, "Life is like me, hard at inopportune times."
I'm going to steal that one from my wife.
I just thinking, I'm like, I need to make her laugh because she's having a tough time. So we have these little whiteboards around the house. So I wrote that on one for her. We'll see how long it takes for her to find it.
Well, I hope it went over well.
Oh, we'll find out. She hasn't found it yet.
So what are your type of favorite genre of movies?
I am a campy horror nerd. I love the Evil Dead series, though I have not watched any of the remakes, and no one can make me. I will happily just keep watching Bruce Campbell in the first three.
Oh yeah, he did it so well.
Right. A lot of it's that, and then because I'm a nerd, I get into a lot of the Game of Thrones and the high fantasy or the historical. A lot of the historical stuff, at least for TV shows, historical dramas. Although we've been watching Vikings Valhalla for a good laugh recently because it's so bad. We just finished it. It's so bad. They tried to base it around another mythological Viking era character, and it's I love the setting, I love the outfits, I love all that stuff, but man, the acting, they got some winners. And there's something that makes it almost better. I mean, like I said, it's terrible. I watched the whole thing. That's my I love bad campy horror. I've watched Trolls 2 at least a few times. Me and my friends like to quote Silent Night Deadly Night 2, which is about a killer Santa character in it. And oh boy, it is a treat, because you got Garbage Day, where it's just he says garbage day to a guy carrying a garbage can and then shoots him. It's why? All right, Garbage Day. And then the other one is, which is normally the when somebody says something and we're yeah, we know, is the red car. Good point. Because he's being interviewed by a therapist, and the therapist is oh, talking to me about these memories you have, and he's going over the stuff and talks about a red car. And so in his thing he writes red car and he circles it a bunch of times, and so this psychotic evil guy looks over his shoulder and goes, red car. Good point. It's just
Yeah, so, I love those old 80s movies too. The Evil Dead, Ash versus the Evil Dead was actually great too.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you kept Bruce Campbell in it, it's good. It's that they tried to remove Bruce Campbell. I guess they're talking about making another one. It's no, not without Bruce Campbell.
Yeah,
just don't.
Yeah, it's just not. It's worthless. Without Bruce Campbell, you don't have an Evil Dead.
Right. I didn't realize. I think Sam Raimi directed those.
I believe he did the first one. I'm not sure if he did more than just the first, or just took the executive producer role.
He might have done that. I just know that he was heavily involved in that, like just the fact that he was, because he directed, he was the executive director for Evil Dead, and I think for Evil Dead 2, So the writer, he was the writer and director of Evil Dead 2, and the continuity for them is that Sam Raimi has a car and has Bruce Campbell that showed up in all of those, and then there was a like Western movie that he did, and to get the car into the Western movie, they used a covered wagon, and they put it inside the covered wagon to like hide it, but still put it in the movie. So that's how he got his car into all of them. Because in Army of Darkness, that's why that's the car that they're driving around with the like weapons attached to it. That's why it's there. It's for him to put it into another movie. So I love that. Like anything that's got that kind of campiness to it, that's like shows a person was very passionate about this thing, and then like almost took it to like a comedic level. I love that stuff. I love camp. Camp is like, it just makes me so happy.
yeah, exactly. That series Army of Darkness was my favorite because it was more funny than scary, but it was really funny.
I bought that and American Psycho were the first 2 horror movies I bought when I was living outside of my parents' house, so I could buy horror movies.
Okay.
It was Army of Darkness and American Psycho.
Two great ones.
Another Christian Bale movie. Christian Bale is one of those characters where it's like, I don't really like, he's an amazing actor for the fact that I just don't think about him in the roles. Like, I don't think, oh, this is Christian Bale. But at the same time, I don't like look to him as like in that idolization way where it's like, oh, your acting is great. I'm like, he disappears into the roles, which is awesome. But like, I kind of like the humanness it brings when you have a character who is like, for my campy horror, glorious, it's wonderful, great. But for like the serious films, like I could deal with Batman because Batman's like, it's a cartoon character or comic book character that's made into a movie. So it didn't bother me that much that he's like disappeared into the role. But like for serious movies, I just like him and The Machinist is like the only one that I'm like him serious in. And I'm just like,
yeah, that's the one you lost all that weight for, right?
Yeah, where he got like crazy, and then he did that like weird like thing. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that is
wow.
Yeah, it's probably like one of my favorite movies, just because it is such a interesting look at insomnia. And as a person who's had insomnia for most of their life, it's interesting to see what it kind of how people perceive what it can do to your perceptions and your mind, because it's powerful stuff. Insomnia can mess your brain up something fierce.
What kind of advice would you give somebody who would want to get into this field?
Just find a way to get recording your stuff and getting stuff out there, and just putting yourself in front of as many people as possible. Really, it's down to just eventually somebody seeing what you're doing and liking it and then taking you on to their project. Like that's really what it comes down to. And there's a lot of people kind of get caught up in where they were going to like put that stuff. But I'd suggest generally, if you have no experience, start someplace that's not going to charge you to have an account there. The one that got me into looking around more online was through ACX, because anyone can start putting out auditions for different like audiobooks through them if you have, a booth and stuff like that. Which is its own thing. But if you wanted to, but for like more like this, I'd say just get out there, just start recording stuff. Find somebody who, if you don't have the stuff you need, find a way to get them. I built a booth out of blankets, a basic wooden frame, and I built a stand for my mic in there. Can take my monitor in and out of that room, so that way like I can record. And that's how I got started into it. And it didn't cost me very much. Honestly, the microphone cost me a bunch, but this is because I was in this microphone I got because I was in metal bands and I'd always wanted one for recording my vocal stuff. And so when I had the money and the opportunity, I got it. But don't be afraid to just get a microphone and get started, because there are plenty of projects out there that need a voice just in there. And plus, make your own stuff. If you like, just If you can't find somebody else, do it yourself. Find like stuff online. Reddit, like there's a lot of stuff on like Reddit for scary stories and stuff like that. And if you message one of those people who wrote their little short story, a lot of the time they're super happy to have somebody record it. So if it's not already been recorded a bunch of times, or go way back into the catalogs, find stuff that's like way past its copyright date, so like it no longer is copyright protected. So you go back to like Lovecraft stuff. If you go back to his early stuff, a lot of that is open to use. Just get recording stuff, get practicing, start learning, because there's so much to do. There's YouTube videos that'll help you get set up on like some setups for like through Reaper. Reaper's a good one to start for free. If you want to add in sound effects, I record my voiceover in Reaper, and then I use Ableton, which is also, you can get a free version of that to pipe in any sound effects or anything along those lines. So just getting out there, there's plenty of free stuff. Get a cheap mic, just do it. that's my best suggestion. Just get out there and start doing it, because even if you make kind of iffy content to start, which I know I make iffy content all the time, that like just the act of doing it, I mean, even if it doesn't lead to anywhere like huge, it's a lot of fun. Try not to take anything too seriously. Try to have fun with it. You got a lot of time in this life. Don't stress the small stuff. And if you don't get that role you wanted, that's fine. There will be plenty more. And the more you work and put your name out there, the more likely you are to get the next one.
That's some really good advice. Okay, so what are you working on now?
Currently, I am actually back in school, which is why I haven't been doing too terribly much with my recording stuff. Trying to get back onto a regular schedule, but I'm doing more with music currently while I'm in school. So I've been doing a lot of practicing different voices, learning new vocal techniques like throat singing and stuff like that I can really use to my advantage and build up my repertoire while I'm overwhelmed with how much schoolwork I have to do. So I don't have as much time to like record stuff. But I do have a couple stories that I'm working on. I'm trying to get into doing the Grimm's fairy tales, because all that stuff is also in that royalty. Some of it's in the royalty free realm. I'm trying to do some of that, but I do a lot of, on Mondays, I'm doing live recording on stream on twitch.tv. I do an entire production for a song, essentially a 1 to 3 minute long song. And this last week I did an ominous like intro song. And this next week I'll be reading from a book, The Lesser Key of Solomon. It's a fascinating book full of really weird things, cool names, and languages that don't actually exist. So I'm going to be using some of those chants and languages that don't exist to create some like ominous chant music. So that's what I'm working on for the most part currently. I do have intention to audition for a few different podcasts and horror podcasts, as well as a personal horror podcast project that I'm working on. Right now, I'm trying to get the school thing done, so everything's kind of been a little bit on hold. I don't have a long time in school, but it's kind of delaying me a little bit.
Yeah, well, school is always very important. So I don't blame you there.
Right.
All right. So, Pete, you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say that I'm specifically going to school for IT, so that way, I can learn the technical side of things, so I can help other people get set up on like the hardware side of stuff with any of this stuff, as well as any computer problems you may or may not have.
Oh, yeah. Well, I used to work in IT, and I have plenty of horror stories. I don't work in IT anymore.
Fair enough. There's a couple different places you could end up in IT, and I hear most of the starting ones are pretty rough.
Yeah. It's not the computers, it's the people.
Yep, I'm hoping to get more into like cybersecurity, so I don't have to deal with too many customers.
Oh, there we go. There you go. Yeah, because when you deal with I dealt with too many people who insisted they knew more than I did. And
hey, everyone knows everything always. I mean, come on, WebMD.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so if people wanted to see your work, where can they see your work, whether it's music or any other films you worked on? Where can they find you?
So I believe the film that I was part of is on IMDb under my name, Dale Tormey. If you can find it there, it's like a little 8-minute, 10-minute video. But then if you want to find most of my narration stuff is up on YouTube. My YouTube name is Baal Yeet, which is BAAL_YEET. And then that same username is also on Twitch, where I stream 3 times a week.
Nice. Now think, what was the one question you've always wished somebody asked you, and pretend I just asked you
it? The weirdest thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life is that I was hit by lightning and I died and came back, and I'm here to tell you that there's nothing. Oh, wow. It's fine, but it's cool. It's very relaxing.
I'll take your word for it, because I don't want to get hit by lightning.
Nope. The aftermath was pretty weird. But yeah, no, that would be probably there's no real good way to ask a question that leads into I've been hit by lightning, but it's always something that's fun to see, just the reaction on people's face when they don't know me. Like, you were what?
Wow. Okay, well, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I'm really excited to get to see what happens with this, and I really hope to work with you in the future, and who knows, maybe make some more fun animations.
Okay, I can guarantee it. You definitely did some great work, and definitely look forward to work with you again.
I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful night, and thank you for this interview. And,
not a problem. Thank you for talking to me for so long.
Okay, no
it's
problem.
lonely talking to yourself.
Well, thank you, Dale, for the interview. It was a lot of fun and very entertaining. Make sure you check out Dale in our new film, Take Me, coming soon.